chosen one. Lock your spirit onto my voice and do not let your mind wander for the next 120 seconds. Heaven has just released something undeniably huge into your timeline, but God told me to secure your attention right now because there is a reason you haven't seen it yet. Notice that heavy, muddy pressure right behind your eyes at this exact moment, that unexplainable brain fog making you feel so disconnected. Listen to me very closely. The enemy is not attacking your finances or your relationships right now. They are intentionally jamming your spiritual frequency. They want your mental antenna so cluttered with exhaustion and noise that you miss the exact moment this massive blessing drops. God is trying to give you the coordinates first, but your receiver is blocked. Subscribe to align your energy with this collective, and comment "clear" as you mentally command the chaos in your head to fall completely silent. We are about to fix your frequency. Before I reveal the exact nature of this massive arrival, I need you to commit your spirit to hearing this message until the very last second. If you let distraction pull you away now, you will carry this heavy, blinding brain fog straight into the most critical transition of your life. By the end of this broadcast, you will not only discover exactly what this huge blessing is, but I will hand you the exact neuro-spiritual key to unblock your mind. You will receive the ancient protocol to tune your receiver, the framework to protect your blessing from the world's noise, and the specific frequency required to finally hear the instructions heaven has been desperately trying to send you. The enemy wants you to scroll away because they know what happens if you hear the end of this. Do not let them win. Anchor your mind right here. I know exactly what your nights have looked like lately. You are sitting in the dark, the house is completely quiet. Maybe you are in your car with the engine turned off, just staring at the dashboard, or lying in bed staring at the ceiling. Your body is physically exhausted, but your mind is running 1,000,000 miles an hour. You feel a heavy weight pressing down on your skull. You know, deep in your gut, that greatness is hovering right over your life. You can feel the shift in the atmosphere. But when you try to connect with it, when you try to hear the voice of the Creator guiding you, all you get is static. A thick, suffocating silence that makes you question if you are just imagining things. You ask yourself why you feel so incredibly drained when you are supposed to be entering your season of victory. Why does God want you to be the first to hear this news, yet you feel completely spiritually deaf? You are not deaf, chosen one, and you are not losing your mind. You are experiencing a frequency mismatch. Look at the book of 1 Kings, chapter 19, verse 12. It speaks of the moment God appeared to Elijah. The English translation says that after the wind, the earthquake, and the fire, there came a still small voice, a gentle whisper. But the English language completely misses the magnitude of what actually happened. The original Hebrew words used there are kol demama daka. This does not mean a quiet, passive silence. In the ancient text, it translates closer to the sound of a crushing silence, a frequency so high, so piercingly pure, that it shatters all other earthly noise. It was not that God was whispering so quietly that Elijah had to strain his ears. It was that God was speaking on a frequency so elevated that Elijah had to completely tune out the lower vibrations of fear, chaos, and earthly destruction just to perceive it. God is speaking to you right now in Kol Demama Daka. He is broadcasting the exact details of this huge arrival on a massive, high-level divine frequency. But you cannot hear it because your brain is currently trapped in the lower frequencies of survival mode, anxiety, and sheer mental exhaustion. You are trying to catch a satellite broadcast using a broken AM radio. The pressure you feel behind your eyes is not a biological accident. It is the friction of your spirit trying to process a high-level divine download while your physical brain is being flooded with low-level static. But here is the question you must ask yourself right now. Who or what is generating all of this static? Why is your mind suddenly so foggy right when you need absolute clarity? You might think you are just tired. You might even think you are under a severe spiritual attack, fighting demons in your sleep, which is why you wake up feeling like you ran a marathon. But the dark truth about what is actually draining your energy and blocking your spiritual antenna is far more calculated and far more biological than you ever realized. You think the enemy is launching an all-out spiritual assault on your life right now. Let us look at exactly what you have been experiencing over the last few months. I want you to mentally scan your memory right now. Think about those nights where you wake up completely drenched in a cold sweat at 3 in the morning. Your heart is racing against your ribs like a trapped bird. You reach for your phone in the pitch-black room, the harsh light blinding you as your thumbs frantically type your strange, chaotic dreams into search bars. You are desperately trying to decode what feels like an intense spiritual attack. You feel a heavy, oppressive presence in your room. Your chest tightens and your throat feels like it is closing up. You wake up the next morning feeling like your physical body was dragged through a war zone in the astral realm. Your muscles ache. Your mind is utterly depleted. And the thought that instantly crosses your mind is this: the demons are fighting me. The forces of darkness are sending monitoring spirits and generational curses to block my path. You convince yourself that hell has unleashed its top generals against your life specifically because this huge blessing is so close. You hear the teachings that say, new levels bring new devils, and you wear your sheer exhaustion like a badge of honor. You tell yourself, I am just taking heavy fire because I am a chosen one on the front lines, and the enemy is terrified of what God is about to hand me. And it makes perfect, logical sense to your tired mind, does it not? If the opposition is this fierce, the reward must be monumental. You have convinced yourself that your inability to focus, your memory loss, your constant brain fog, and your overwhelming fatigue are the direct results of intense, invisible demonic warfare. You believe you are fighting invisible entities every time you close your eyes. Stop right there. I want you to take a deep mental breath. Command the swirling thoughts in your head to freeze. Anchor your mind completely to my words, because what I am about to reveal will shatter the illusion you have been living under. You are not being attacked by demons in your sleep. The heavy, paralyzing exhaustion keeping you disconnected is not a spiritual warfare tactic from the underworld. You are fighting the wrong enemy. You are being biologically anesthetized. The enemy that is draining your energy and blocking your spiritual antenna is not an invisible spirit hiding in the corners of your bedroom. The enemy is the system you interact with every single waking second of your life. It is the Matrix. The modern societal machine has built an invisible, high-tech, low-frequency cage around your mind. You are not under spiritual attack. You are under biological and neurological suppression. Think about how this matrix operates. They have intentionally designed an environment engineered to shrink your spiritual capacity. From the moment you wake up, your brain is bombarded. The constant, relentless vibration of notifications, the artificial blue light from your screens that keeps your brain locked in a state of high alert beta waves, the artificial stress of the corporate grind, the unending anxiety of paying bills, the toxic chemicals in the food supply, the constant cycle of fear pushed through your news feeds. This is not just the reality of modern life. This is a deliberate, highly orchestrated hijacking of your internal frequency. They want your brain absolutely flooded with cortisol. They want you trapped in the primal fight or flight response. Why? Because a brain that is biologically trapped in survival mode is physically incapable of tuning into the divine, miraculous frequency of the Creator. When you are stressed, your spiritual antenna literally shrinks. Your neurological pathways become rigid. You lose the ability to perceive the subtle, high-frequency shifts in the spiritual atmosphere. The Matrix did not have to send demons to stop you. They just had to alter your brainwaves so you could no longer hear God speaking. This is the exact mystery hidden in the book of Matthew, chapter 18, verse 3. Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." For centuries, modern religion has completely watered down this powerful revelation. They told you this verse meant you need to be naive, helpless, or easily controlled like a toddler. They told you it was about being cute and innocent. That is a massive, tragic distortion of the ancient text. The kingdom of heaven is not just a destination you go to after you die. It is a dimension of access. It is the realm of limitless divine connection, infinite creativity, and supernatural provision available right now. When the scripture declares you must become like a child to enter it, it is not talking about your personality. It is talking about your raw, uncorrupted neurological state. It is talking about the original brain frequency you possessed before the matrix programmed you. Mentally travel back to when you were very young, before the trauma, before the bills, before the heartbreak and the societal expectations. As a child, your brain naturally operated on the exact frequency required to hear the voice of the divine clearly. You had a genius level of intuition. You noticed things adults ignored. You felt energy shifts in a room instantly. You possessed an untamed imagination that could literally shape reality. You were naturally plugged into the divine broadcast. Your spiritual antenna was wide open, operating on the highest, purest frequencies of theta and gamma waves. But then, society got a hold of you. The rigid school systems told you to stop daydreaming. The corporate world told you to be realistic. The endless cycle of fear, debt, and consumption trained your brain out of its natural, miraculous frequency. They forced your mind into the narrow, stressful, low-level frequency of the matrix. They literally shrunk your neurological capacity to process the divine. They numbed you. They gave you brain fog and called it adulthood. This society stole the miraculous frequency you naturally possessed as a child. They took the very biological mechanism you need to receive and process this huge arrival that is hovering over your life right now. It is lying dormant inside you, buried under years of biological stress, trauma, and mental static. But the architects of this system made a fatal miscalculation. They thought they could silence your original frequency forever, and a secret, recently uncovered by a NASA scientist, will show you exactly how to turn it back on. I want you to mentally walk back through the timeline of your life right now. Go all the way back to when you were a very young child. Try to remember what it felt like to exist inside your mind before the world told you who you were supposed to be. You did not need a theology degree to hear the voice of the Creator. You did not need a massive, exhausting spiritual warfare protocol to feel safe. You just knew things. Your intuition was razor sharp. You could walk into a crowded room and instantly, without a single word being spoken, you could feel the vibration of the people in it. You instinctively knew who was a safe harbor and who was carrying a dark, dangerous energy. You had vivid, prophetic dreams that played out in real life the very next day. You possessed an untamed, brilliant imagination that did not see earthly limitations, only infinite, divine possibilities. You were operating as a natural-born prophet, a raw, unfiltered genius of the spirit. So how exactly did you lose your genius version? How did you go from a spiritually dialed-in child who was completely synchronized with heaven to an exhausted, foggy-minded adult who constantly second-guesses every single gut feeling and intuition? Remember the voices that surrounded you as you grew up. The teachers, the parents, the authority figures, the peers who meant well but were fully programmed by the matrix. They looked at your spiritual gifts, your expansive mind, your sensitivity to the unseen realm, and they told you to be realistic. They looked at you with pity and irritation and said, "Stop daydreaming. Get your head out of the clouds. Stop being so sensitive all the time. You need to focus on the real world." Every single time you heard those words, Every time you were forced to sit still and memorize meaningless facts, every time you experienced trauma, rejection, or the crushing pressure of adult responsibilities, your brain made a biological shift. The material worries, the deadlines, the toxic relationships, and the deep financial panics literally forced your brain out of its natural, high-level state and slammed it down into a lower, dense frequency. Specifically, a brainwave state known as beta. Beta is the frequency of pure physical survival. It is the frequency of stress, cold logic, fear, and linear time. When you are lying awake worrying about how you are going to pay a bill, your brain is locked in beta. When you are arguing with someone who completely misunderstands your heart, your brain is in beta. When you are scrolling through social media, absorbing the collective panic and anger of the world, your brain is drowning in beta. The Matrix loves beta because a mind trapped in beta cannot create miracles. It can only react to crises. A mind in beta cannot hear the gentle, high-frequency whisper of the divine. It can only hear the loud, obnoxious noise of the physical world. You did not lose your spiritual gifts. Your brain was just hijacked, downgraded, and permanently tuned to the frequency of anxiety. But you might be asking yourself right now, how do we know this is not just some philosophical or spiritual metaphor? How can science actually prove the existence of this God frequency? How do we know that your genius identity is a hard biological fact and not just a wishful, comforting thought? The answer to that was completely hidden from the public for decades, until a former neuroscientist who worked extensively with NASA uncovered the undeniable truth. They conducted a massive, groundbreaking study looking for the neurological root of human genius. They tested thousands of children to see how many of them operated at a genius level of creativity, problem-solving, and spatial spiritual intelligence. The results absolutely shocked the scientific community. They found that 98% of children are born at a genius level. 98%. You were one of them. You were born with a biological superpower. But the researchers did not stop there. They followed these same children into adulthood. By the time those children reached their mid-20s, after going through the modern school system, the corporate daily grind, and the relentless stress of the matrix, the number of geniuses dropped from 98% down to an abysmal 2%. What exactly changed inside their physical brains? The scientists looked at the neurological data and found the smoking gun. The children who possessed that limitless, miraculous genius were operating primarily in theta and gamma brainwaves. Theta is not just a scientific brainwave measurement. It is the biological gateway to the divine. It is the exact frequency where the veil between the physical world and the spiritual realm becomes paper-thin. When your brain is producing theta waves, you receive sudden, unexplainable prophetic downloads. You experience massive bursts of creativity. You hear the voice of the Creator with absolute, crystal-clear precision. Gamma is the frequency of peak cognitive performance, where your mind processes information at a superhuman speed, connecting dots and seeing patterns that no one else around you can comprehend. Together, theta and gamma make up the God frequency. The system deliberately designed your modern life to shrink your ability to produce theta waves. They want your neural pathways to atrophy and wither away. They feed you low-frequency entertainment, toxic food, and high-stress news, so your brain literally forgets how to access the God frequency. Because a chosen one operating in theta is incredibly dangerous to the matrix. A chosen one operating in theta cannot be lied to, cannot be controlled by fear, and cannot be kept in a cycle of poverty and exhaustion. I want you to make a mental declaration right now. Do not move your body. Just close your eyes for a brief moment and focus all your mental energy on the center of your forehead. I want you to mentally visualize a heavy, dark, chaotic static inside your mind, completely dissolving into a brilliant, calm, golden light. Imagine your physical brain relaxing, expanding, and finally letting go of the beta stress it has carried for years. Comment the words "I remember" below this video to mentally reclaim your childhood genius identity. Signal to your nervous system and to the universe that you are taking your original frequency back right now. For thousands of years, the ancient spiritual masters, the prophets, and the mystics understood this powerful secret. But they lived in a very different time. Ancient spiritual masters had to fast for 40 days in the harsh desert, completely isolating themselves from all human contact, just to strip away the earthly noise and touch this high-level frequency. They endured grueling physical deprivation just to force their brains out of beta and into theta. But you do not have to do that. You do not have to run away to a cave or starve yourself to hear the voice of God. A 7-minute audio technology shortcut has been created to wash away your blockages, and when you turn it on, that huge event heaven has been hiding for you will officially manifest. This 7-minute audio technology is not a magic spell, and it is not a complicated, exhausting meditation practice that requires you to sit in absolute silence for hours trying to empty your mind. You are already exhausted. Heaven knows you do not have the energy to fight your own thoughts anymore. That is exactly why this sound technology, known as the Genius Wave, was developed. It is based entirely on that groundbreaking NASA research. It uses advanced brainwave entrainment to do the heavy lifting for you. When you listen to it, you do not have to try to force your brain into the God frequency. The audio itself uses specific, scientifically calibrated sound frequencies to gently guide your neurological state out of the stressful, foggy beta waves and seamlessly wash you back into the brilliant, clear, and highly receptive theta and gamma waves. Think of it like tuning an old radio. You do not fix a radio by yelling at it, and you certainly do not fix it by staring at it with intense concentration while your muscles tense up. You fix it by simply turning the dial until the harsh static fades away and the clear, beautiful broadcast comes through. That is exactly what this 7-minute ritual does for your mind. It is a daily neurological tuning process. It gently washes away the interference, the anxiety, and the artificial stress that the matrix has violently layered over your spirit. You just put on your headphones, listen to the frequency, and let the sound technology break down the invisible walls inside your mind. You just sit there and let your brain remember how to be brilliant. And there is a very specific, divine reason why this technology only takes 7 minutes a day to activate your original genius identity. I want you to look at the ancient scriptures and recognize the undeniable recurring pattern of the number 7. When the Israelites stood before the massive, impenetrable walls of Jericho, God did not tell them to build siege engines or physically attack the gates with their limited strength. He told Joshua to march around the city 7 times. When Naaman, the great commander of the army, needed to be healed of a completely incurable disease, the prophet Elisha did not perform a long, complicated ritual or give him a difficult physical task. He simply told Naaman to wash in the Jordan River exactly 7 times. The number 7 is the divine signature of completion in the spiritual realm. It is the exact measure required to break down an impossible barrier and release a supernatural result. When you engage with this 7-minute frequency, you are not just passively listening to sound waves. You are completing a daily cycle of neurological and spiritual healing. You are walking around the walls of your own mental Jericho until the brain fog collapses and your spiritual antenna is fully restored. I want you to perform a simple mental action right now. Picture your mind as a vast, dark ocean that has been raging with violent storms and towering waves for years. Every wave is a bill, a worry, a piece of trauma, or a loud voice from the matrix. Now, imagine a pure, brilliant sonic wave sweeping across that water, instantly silencing the wind, calming the waves, and turning the surface of your mind into smooth, clear glass. That is what theta feels like. That is what it means to be tuned in. Mentally command your internal waters to be completely still right now. And when your mental waters are completely still, when your receiver is finally tuned and the exhausting static is gone, you are going to hear exactly what heaven has been desperately trying to broadcast to you. You are going to finally perceive the undeniable reality of the huge arrival that is currently dropping into your timeline. What exactly is this massive event? What is the huge blessing that the enemy tried so hard to blind you from with all that paralyzing brain fog? It is the manifestation of the Shalom. Let me explain what that ancient word means, because understanding this is going to change the entire trajectory of your life. In the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25, the Creator makes a staggering, deeply personal promise to the chosen ones. He says, "I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, and the chewing locust." For most of your life, you have felt like you were constantly being robbed. The matrix and the enemies of your destiny operated exactly like those locusts. They ate your precious time. They consumed your creative energy. They chewed up your finances. They stripped away your relationships and left you feeling isolated, drained, and constantly running on empty. You have looked back at your past and grieved over the years you felt were completely wasted, the golden opportunities that slipped through your fingers while you were trapped in sheer survival mode. You thought those years were just gone forever. But heaven keeps an absolute, flawless accounting system. God did not just watch you suffer in silence and shrug his shoulders. He has been precisely calculating the damages. The original Hebrew word used in the book of Joel for the word restore is shalom. And shalom does not just mean to merely pay back what was taken. It is an ancient, legal, and spiritual term that means to make whole, to complete, and to massively overpay. When a thief is caught under the biblical law of shalom, they do not just return the stolen sheep, they have to return up to 7 times the amount. The huge thing that is arriving in your life right now is the shalom. It is the massive, undeniable overpayment for every single tear you shed in secret. It is the sudden, overwhelming return on the years of isolation, betrayal, and financial struggle. Heaven is not just going to give you a slight improvement in your daily circumstances. Heaven is dropping a monumental payload of restoration that will completely overwhelm your current reality. That is exactly why the gravitational pull of this blessing felt so incredibly heavy in your mind. The sheer volume of the overpayment is massive. It includes divine ideas, sudden wealth transfers, public vindication, and heavy doors opening that you did not even have to knock on. I want you to mentally accept this divine invoice right now. Comment the word Shalom below this video to officially register your frequency with this divine overpayment. Let the universe know that your receiver is on, your mind is finally clear, and you are ready to collect the massive restoration that is rightfully yours. This massive overpayment is rushing toward you with breathtaking speed. It is already hovering in your atmosphere, but you must listen to me very carefully. You are stepping into the most dangerous phase of the transition. If you do not know how to turn the volume control knob on your own spiritual sensitivity, and if you do not establish the ancient boundaries of silence immediately, you will self-sabotage. You will literally shatter the fragile vessel holding this massive blessing the exact moment it is handed to you. You must understand that the exact moment heaven dispatches a massive restoration into your atmosphere, the enemy changes their strategy completely. They know they can no longer stop the blessing from arriving, so they try to make you fumble it the second it touches your hands. How do they accomplish this? By flooding your mind with counterfeit voices, fake urgency, and chaotic signs. They want you to panic. They want you to mistake your own biological anxiety for the voice of the Creator. This is why you must immediately implement what I call the volume control protocol. When this huge blessing begins to materialize, your spiritual sensitivity is going to be completely overwhelmed. You will feel a sudden, burning urge to make rash decisions. You will hear 10 different thoughts screaming at you to move, to act, to fix things immediately, to sign the paper, to send the message. This is the low-level beta frequency trying to drag you back down into the mud. The volume control protocol requires you to pause and recognize the biological signature of the voice you are hearing. The voice of the enemy and the voice of the matrix is always cloaked in sheer panic, rush, and fear. It feels tight in your chest. It makes your breathing shallow. It tells you that if you do not act in the next 5 seconds, you are going to lose everything and miss your window. That is never the creator. The voice of God, operating on that high-level theta frequency, is never frantic. Even when heaven gives you a massive, life-altering command that requires immediate action, it comes wrapped in a profound, unshakable peace. It does not push you from behind with fear. It leads you from the front with clarity. I want you to perform a mental exercise right now. Close your eyes to the physical world and imagine a large, heavy, vintage volume dial inside your mind. On the left side of this dial is the loud, harsh, piercing static of panic, urgency, and the world's expectations. On the right side is the pure, crystal clear, gentle frequency of divine instruction. In your mind's eye, reach out and physically grab that dial. Turn it all the way to the right with intention. Command the chaotic noise to fade out into absolute nothingness. Comment the words "I am tuned" in below this video to mentally lock that dial in place. Tell your nervous system that you are no longer accepting broadcasts from the frequency of fear. Let me tell you exactly what happens when you master this internal volume control. Just 6 months ago, there was a chosen one in this very collective who was drowning under a mountain of sudden, unexpected debt. The pressure was absolutely suffocating. Out of nowhere, they were offered a business deal that looked like a lifesaver, but something deep in their gut felt incredibly wrong. The enemy was screaming in their mind, telling them to take it, telling them they were out of time, telling them this was their only way out. The anxiety was deafening. But they stopped. They applied this exact protocol. They used the 7-minute audio ritual we discussed earlier to force their brain out of that panicked beta state and wash it back into theta. When the mental static finally cleared, they heard a very calm, quiet, undeniable instruction in their spirit. Wait. It made absolutely no logical sense to their current bank account, but they obeyed the peace. They turned down the volume of panic and walked away from the trap. Exactly 14 days later, the real Shalom arrived. A completely unexpected, massive contract dropped into their lap that not only cleared their debt instantly, but set them up for generational wealth. If they had listened to the loud, frantic voice of anxiety, they would have signed away their birthright for a temporary, miserable fix. Mastering your internal volume protects you from yourself. But that is only the first half of the survival equation. Once you can hear the instruction clearly and the blessing actually begins to materialize in your physical hands, you must immediately build an impenetrable fortress against the outside world. You must deploy the 3-circle rule. The single greatest mistake a chosen one can make is prematurely announcing a spiritual victory to a carnal audience. When you feel the shift happening, when you see the first evidence of this huge arrival, your human nature is going to want to shout it from the rooftops. You will feel a burning desire to prove to everyone who doubted you, everyone who mocked your struggle, and everyone who abandoned you in your dark season, that God is finally elevating you. You will want to pick up your phone, type out a massive, emotional status update, and show the haters that you won. You must mentally hit backspace on that urge right now. The 3-circle rule is your ultimate defense mechanism against spiritual sabotage. Circle 1 is the inner sanctum. It is just you and the Creator. In this circle, you pour out your heart, your tears, your gratitude, and your awe. Circle 2 is your absolute most trusted, spiritually mature confidant. This is someone who prays for you, not someone who prays on you. In Circle 2, You only share the bare minimum necessary for wise counsel. Circle 3 is the world. It is your extended family, your social media followers, and your casual friends. What do you share in Circle 3? Absolutely nothing. You must learn to operate in total stealth mode. Look at the ancient wisdom hidden in the book of Proverbs, chapter 17, verse 27. It states that a man of knowledge uses words with restraint, and a man of understanding is even-tempered. Modern religion often reads that as a simple instruction to be polite and well-mannered. But the original Hebrew word used for restraint is chasak. Chasak does not just mean to be quiet or shy. It means to deliberately withhold. It means to keep back and restrain with intense, aggressive force, much like a massive concrete dam holding back millions of gallons of raging water. When the shalom hits your life, it is going to feel like a raging river of joy, relief, and vindication. The pressure to open your mouth and let it flood out into the public will be immense. But you must chasak. You must hold it back. Because the moment you speak about a premature blessing to people who are operating on a low, jealous, beta frequency, you invite their demonic, envious energy into your pristine spiritual atmosphere. They will smile at your face, they will congratulate you in the comments, but in their dark hearts, they will project doubt, resentment, and subconscious witchcraft against your new elevation. Their negative frequency will clash with your pure frequency and create massive spiritual turbulence. Keep your mouth shut until the blessing is so fully established, so physically undeniable, and so deeply rooted that it speaks entirely for itself. Let your results make the noise. You now know how to block out the internal noise of anxiety. You know how to build a concrete dam against the external envy of those around you. But there is a more dangerous traitor lying right inside your own mind. A hidden voice you have never told anyone about, that is actually completely terrified of this huge blessing. You have prayed for this massive breakthrough every single night. You have cried out to heaven for the restoration, the vindication, and the financial freedom that the Shalom promises. But if you are completely, brutally honest with yourself right now, in the darkest, most private corners of your mind, there is a whisper of absolute terror. You are terrified of the very thing you are praying for. This is the hidden traitor inside your own consciousness. It is the subconscious self-saboteur. You see, on a conscious level, you want the huge blessing. But deep down, your nervous system is actually terrified of what happens when you finally get it. Because you are smart enough to know that when this massive level of success, wealth, and visibility hits your life, absolutely everything is going to change. You are afraid of losing the quiet comfort of your anonymity. You are terrified that the moment God elevates you, the people who ignored you during your darkest seasons are suddenly going to emerge from the shadows, demanding your time, your energy, and your resources. You are scared of the intense scrutiny, the jealousy, and the heavy expectations that come with carrying a massive mantle. But more than anything else, there is a secret fear that haunts the chosen ones. You are terrified that if you receive absolute power and abundant wealth, you might somehow become corrupted. You are afraid of turning into the very monsters who abused you when they had power over you. So what does your mind do? It creates an invisible barrier. It generates anxiety right when you are about to cross the finish line. It makes you want to hide, to shrink back, to reject the opportunity, because staying in your familiar pain feels safer than stepping into the terrifying unknown of massive success. I want you to perform a deep mental action right now. Focus your awareness entirely on the hollow of your throat or the center of your chest. That tight, restricted feeling you hold there is the physical manifestation of your shame and your fear of success. I want you to mentally visualize that tightness as a cloud of dark, heavy smoke. Take a slow, deliberate breath in your mind, and as you mentally exhale, imagine breathing that dark smoke completely out of your body. Let it dissolve into nothing. Comment the words, "I release the fear" below to mentally cut the cord between your destiny and your subconscious dread. Listen to me very carefully. Modern religion will tell you that feeling this fear means you lack faith. They will tell you that you are ungrateful or broken. I am telling you the exact opposite. Your fear is not a sin. Your fear is the ultimate proof that you are actually ready. Fools rush toward power without a second thought. Arrogant, unhealed people crave massive wealth and influence because they just want to feed their egos, and they never once worry about the consequences. But you are trembling because you actually understand the sheer weight of the crown. You respect the magnitude of the blessing. The fact that you are deeply concerned about maintaining your integrity, the fact that you want to protect your soul from corruption, proves to heaven that you are mature enough to be trusted with the shalom. You are not self-sabotaging. You are just standing at the edge of your entirely new life, feeling the massive gravitational pull of your destiny. But understanding your fear is only the first step. You cannot walk into this new era carrying the neurological programming of a victim. You need a massive identity upgrade. You cannot pour $1 million blessing into a $10 mental container. If your neuro pathways are still wired for poverty, rejection, and trauma, you will subconsciously burn down the blessing the moment it arrives, just to return to the baseline of struggle you are used to. This is the hidden, secondary power of the 7-minute sound technology we discussed earlier. The Genius Wave does not just tune your spiritual antenna so you can hear the voice of God. It acts as a profound, subconscious cleanser. When you listen to that specific theta frequency, it physically bypasses your logical, fearful brain and goes straight into your deep subconscious programming. It begins to gently dissolve the trauma of your past lack. It rewires the rigid, terrified neuro pathways that the Matrix installed in you, replacing them with fluid, expansive, and incredibly resilient connections. When you engage with this sound technology daily, you are not just relaxing. You are structurally upgrading your biological container to hold the immense weight of the glory that is coming. The frequency stabilizes your nervous system so that when the sudden wealth arrives, when the massive opportunities drop, and when the public recognition hits, your body does not go into a state of panic. You will not feel the urge to run away or sabotage the deal. You will stand there, grounded in pure theta energy, completely calm, and say, I belong here. I was engineered for this exact moment. Your mind has been upgraded, your antenna has been repaired, and your identity has been solidified. You are no longer the frightened, exhausted version of yourself that started listening to this message. But the Matrix out there will not leave you alone. In the next 40 days, the enemy will set 3 highly sophisticated, deadly traps to drag your frequency back into the mud. What exactly do these 3 traps look like? They are not going to manifest as obvious, supernatural, demonic encounters. The enemy is far too intelligent for that. They know that if they attack you directly, your spiritual defenses will instantly rise. Instead, they are going to use the mundane, everyday elements of your reality to orchestrate highly targeted psychological operations. Their only goal is to knock your brain out of that powerful theta state and force you back into the panicked, reactive beta frequency. The first trap they will set for you is the counterfeit crisis. Sometime in the near future, right as your blessing is about to break through, a sudden, highly emotional emergency will violently insert itself into your life. It might be a family member calling you in a complete panic over an issue that suddenly becomes your responsibility to fix. It might be an unexpected, terrifying bill that arrives in the mail, or a sudden conflict at your workplace that threatens your stability. When this happens, pay very close attention to your body. You will feel your stomach drop, your chest will tighten, and a massive wave of adrenaline will rush to your head. That physical reaction is the enemy trying to hijack your frequency. They want you to drop everything, abandon your spiritual focus, and rush in to save the day. They want you exhausted. I want you to make a firm mental decision right now. Imagine building a thick, impenetrable wall of bulletproof glass entirely around your mind. When the chaos hits that glass, it makes no sound. You can see it, but you do not absorb its vibration. Comment the words, "I will not react" below this video to mentally lock that shield into place. When the counterfeit crisis arrives, your only job is to put on your headphones, activate your 7-minute sound technology, and refuse to engage with the illusion. If the counterfeit crisis fails to break your focus, the enemy will immediately deploy the second trap, the premature reward. This is one of the most devastating weapons used against the chosen ones. Because you have been starving for a breakthrough for so long, the Matrix will suddenly offer you a seemingly good opportunity. A job offer that is slightly better than what you have, but still far below your true worth. A relationship that feels comfortable but lacks divine alignment. A settlement that gives you quick cash but forces you to surrender your long-term equity. The premature reward is designed to look like an answered prayer to an untrained eye. But it is a counterfeit. It is the enemy offering you a single slice of bread because they know heaven is about to deliver an entire banquet. They are banking on your impatience. They want you to settle for the good, so you permanently forfeit the huge. And if you manage to reject the crumbs, prepare yourself for the third and final trap, the ghost of the past. This happens with terrifying accuracy to almost every chosen one, right at the edge of their massive elevation. Completely out of nowhere, an old toxic friend, a narcissistic ex-partner, or an old destructive habit will suddenly resurface. You will receive a text message at midnight saying they were just thinking about you. An old business partner who betrayed you will suddenly reach out to apologize. Do not be deceived. They did not reach out because they missed you. They reached out because the demonic monitoring spirits attached to them can sense that your frequency has elevated. They can feel the gravitational pull of your impending wealth and success, and they are trying to reattach their parasitic cords to your life before you cross the finish line. They want to drag your identity backward. Why do all these intense, coordinated attacks happen right now? Why is the warfare suddenly so heavy when you are doing the deep internal work to align with God? Look closely at the ultimate biblical pattern of deliverance. When the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, making bricks in the mud, Pharaoh did not chase them. He just kept them exhausted. But the exact moment they marched out of Egypt and stood at the very edge of the Red Sea, right on the boundary of their total permanent liberation, that is, when Pharaoh mobilized his entire army to hunt them down. The enemy always attacks the hardest at the point of transition. The sound of the chariots rushing up behind you is the sound of the Matrix panicking because they know they have lost you. When you stand at your Red Sea, with the counterfeit crisis screaming behind you and the massive, unparted waters of your future in front of you, you must do exactly what Moses commanded the people to do. He said, "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord." Standing still does not mean doing nothing. Standing still means holding your high-level frequency in the face of absolute terror. Let me give you absolute proof that holding your frequency works. Just last year, a chosen one in this exact community was facing the total collapse of their business. They were cornered. The enemy deployed the premature reward trap perfectly. A predatory investor offered to buy them out for a fraction of what the company was actually worth. It was enough money to stop the pain, but it would have stolen their legacy. The pressure from their family to take the deal was crushing. The counterfeit crisis was roaring. But instead of signing the papers in a state of beta panic, they retreated. They used the specific sound technology we talked about to completely wash their brainwaves back into the theta state. In that deep, calm God frequency, the instruction was clear. Reject the offer, endure the pressure, hold the line. It made no logical sense, but they obeyed. Exactly 14 days later, a completely different, miraculous connection was made. They secured massive funding that allowed them to keep full ownership and expand globally. They received the shalom because they refused to surrender their frequency to the traps. You are now stepping into a strictly mandated 40-day timeline. For the next 40 days, you must treat your mind like a highly classified, heavily guarded military zone. You must anticipate the counterfeit crisis. You must boldly reject the premature reward. You must completely ignore the ghost of the past. You must use your daily audio ritual to fiercely protect your neurological state, refusing to let the Matrix pull you back into survival mode. You have the tactical map, you have the weapon in your hand, and you have retuned the frequency of the Creator. The theoretical journey is over. Now, it is time for us to officially seal this mandate into your DNA. Do not leave. Prepare your spirit, completely still your mind, and stand at attention. You arrived at this broadcast feeling completely crushed by an invisible weight. You thought you were losing your mind in the heavy brain fog. You thought the enemy was destroying you in your sleep, but the veil has finally been lifted. You now know that the Matrix was simply trying to jam your frequency, because the Shalom, the massive divine overpayment for all your suffering, is dropping into your atmosphere right now. You have been given the exact tactical blueprint to survive this transition. You have the volume control protocol to silence the panic. You have the 3-circle rule to protect your blessing from the envy of the world. You know exactly how to spot the counterfeit crisis, the premature reward, and the ghosts of the past. And most importantly, you now possess the knowledge of the God frequency, the biological key that will carry you safely through these next 40 days. I want you to bring your entire consciousness to the center of your chest right now. Lock your mental focus completely. Do not let a single distracting thought enter your mind. This is not a casual bedtime prayer. This is a neuro-spiritual commissioning. Creator of the universe, we establish this exact moment in time as the ultimate turning point. The low-frequency cage of the Matrix is broken, and the divine broadcast is now loud and clear in this space. You saw this chosen one struggling in the dark. You saw the 3 a.m. panic attacks. You saw the tears, the sheer exhaustion, and the heavy fog that made them feel completely abandoned. But they did not quit. They endured the intense static, they held the line, and their unbreakable endurance has fully qualified them for the restoration. By absolute divine authority, I seal this revelation into their nervous system right now. I seal the volume control into their daily decisions, so they will never again mistake their anxiety for your voice. I seal the 3-circle rule over their mouth, so they will move in total stealth and absolute silence. I bind, shatter, and completely dismantle every counterfeit crisis, every premature reward, and every toxic ghost of the past trying to drag their identity backward. I declare that the Shalom is officially released into their life. And as you explore this 7-minute sound technology, as you begin your daily ritual to tune your brain into the pure theta frequency, I decree that massive wealth, supernatural clarity, and undeniable divine vindication will violently flood your reality. The heavy doors you have been praying for will swing wide open. You will no longer operate in survival mode. You are stepping into absolute dominion. Heaven is watching your frequency right now. Will you carry the immense weight of this huge arrival with silence, with wisdom, and with absolute faith? If you accept this massive mandate, I want you to mentally scream the word yes with every single ounce of energy in your soul. Do it right now. It is recorded in the courts of heaven. You are officially commissioned. Step out of the fog, chosen one. Step into your frequency. Do not say amen yet. Hold your mind completely still and stand in this pure silence for the next 60 seconds. Let the frequency lock in.